In this episode, I'm going to talk about the most important thing in real estate. And no, it's not the cash flow. No, it's not the depreciation. And no, it's not the principal pay down, even though those are all fantastic. The most important thing in real estate is something that people oftentimes don't think about, but it's the land underneath the real estate. The land is actually the thing that's going up in value, okay? When people talk about, buying and holding houses, the house itself is actually going down in value, right? Think about it, if you held the house for 1,000 years, right? Obviously nobody's gonna live that long. But let's say if you could hold the house for 1,000 years, that house is eventually going to be rubble. It's eventually going to have to be rebuilt probably several times, on that same land. But the land itself is what's going to continue going up in value year after year, decade after decade, and so on. What's that mean? Well, what that means is that as real estate investors, we should, over the course of our career, focus on trying to own the best land that we can, essentially the best lots, the best locations, because that's going to increase the value of our portfolio. Most of the time when we start out, we are doing what we can afford, right? Oftentimes starting out in kind of C-class type real estate, and we're buying kind of starter homes, and we're flipping those, we're wholesaling those, and all that's fantastic. I do a lot of that too. I still do those houses because it's nice to get those quick paydays. But as we become experienced real estate investors and really want to start growing our net worth and growing our wealth, that's when we need to start merging over to better quality real estate. And again, it's not the house. It doesn't matter whether you have a 1,000 square foot house or a 3,000 square foot house. What matters is where that house sits, okay? That location, that land that it sits on. And so what determines the value of the land? Well, it's going to be determined based off of where it's at with the city. The path of growth is going to depend on the crime rate. So, you might have a 2,000 square foot house inner city, and then you might have that's maybe, let's just say $100,000. You might have that 2,000 square foot house in a nice suburb, and it's $300,000 or $400,000. Okay, same house, different location, completely different value, and completely different appreciation rates, right? That same house in the inner city might appreciate at 1% per year. That house in the suburb might appreciate at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, maybe more, depending on where it's at. You're getting exponentially more growth in your portfolio for the same amount of work. And so when I coach people, when I talk to them, that's why I try to get them to merge over to better quality real estate as their career grows, because their net worth and their wealth is going to grow at a much faster rate with the same amount of work. So eventually, as you continue to do this, why would you want to spend your time on lower quality real estate when you can spend that same time acquiring better quality real estate? Right? It only makes sense. And again, in the beginning, we're doing this a lot of times because we need the cash flow, right? We're trying to build up that cash flow, $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, whatever it is, whatever your goal is. But once you get to that point where you no longer really need that cash flow anymore, and you will get to that point, that's a great transition period to start moving over to owning better quality real estate. So again, the thing that determines the value is the path of growth for the city. Where they're looking at as the direction that they're wanting to grow in. The crime rate. The lower the crime rate, generally the better the values. The better the school districts, the better the values. So look at it this way: somebody is going to be willing to pay more to get into a better quality area, to have a safer life, safer for their kids, to where they can offer their kids better education, to where they can have better amenities, closer to grocery stores and malls, closer to hospitals, all that stuff. So that proximity to those better things increases the value of the real estate around it. the closer you are to better quality commercial real estate. So when you look at different parts of the city that have A-class commercial real estate, you want to try to get to where you own some houses around those commercial buildings, because that's going to pull the value of your house up just by being around that commercial real estate. It's just something to think about as you're building your portfolio, as you're going to increase in your career, as you're working on increasing your wealth. Start focusing on getting into the better quality real estate, because your net worth and your wealth is going to grow from it. You're also very likely going to attract better quality tenants, tenants that probably could buy if they really wanted to, or they were homeowners in the past and they've had a transition in their life, but they're generally tenants that take more pride in ownership and, treat it as if it's their own, as opposed to purely looking like it's a rental and they don't really care what happens to the house. Okay, you're gonna find that a lot in some of the inner city type of homes and rentals. I started doing this several years ago, and it was kind of a slow process. I found that my portfolio was growing a little bit slower, but the value of the portfolio was increasing a lot, because instead of, essentially I was adding houses that were almost double the value. And here's the thing, is that when you decide on your ideal property avatar that you want to own, right? And you should focus on having that, then that's going to be what you start attracting. And as you start to do your marketing, as you start to negotiate with sellers, all your focus goes into owning that type of home. And guess what? That's what you start to attract. So just by making a decision of that's the type of property you want to own, naturally you start to attract those types of houses. So hopefully that makes some sense. Feel free to follow me on markleteducation.com, and I will see you guys in the next video.